I can't see you just yet. There we go. Yeah, that's better.
Yeah, that should be fine. It should work fine.
All right,
I don't
man.
know
All
why
good.
that thing doesn't work, but
Your
so
picture's
mate.
nice and clear.
So what are you? You're obviously a footy player.
Yeah, I played with Jed in Sydney, and I've just retired and thought I'd jump into a bit of coaching. And my little business is a highlights reel business, so I do highlight reels for rugby players all over the world. And obviously, rugby's in a bit of a bad way, generally speaking, in most places. So I thought, you know what, I've always wanted to do this, and so it was a bit of fuck it, why not? You know.
Yeah, nice. Yeah,
And
it's cool.
it's cool, mate. I spoke to Pat Lam this morning and speaking to some good guys. So, mate, it's been fun. It's been fun.
That's good.
So we're already recording, but I've kind of just treated it as a conversation. I got some stuff I want to ask you, but mate, it's pretty casual, mate. Hey, something I didn't know about you till a couple of days ago is you're actually now teammates with Michael Hooper. What's that like? Is it strange seeing him every day at training, considering you played against each other so many times?
A little bit, yeah. It's kind of been a little bit of a strange time with COVID kind of being around. Like, so he got in kind of 28th of December and literally only saw each other this Monday. So it's been...
so you've only just met him?
Yeah. So I only literally kind of just met him because we've only been back training this week. So it's been good, eh? So obviously he's more about just learning the roles and things like that. And but it's going to be, I'm looking forward to it actually, getting to know him a bit more. Obviously, it's been a number of years playing against each other. So, it'll be good.
It's probably nice to sort of step away from the sort of pressures of Test footy and Super Rugby and probably get to know a guy a bit better that you've played with for a long time.
Yeah, for me, this is what the Japan kind of lifestyle's been. It's completely away from that whole pressure situation of Test matches and can really just enjoy the footy a bit more and maybe not have to concentrate as hard on, on what you're doing. So when you do leave the training ground, you can leave the footy behind and just enjoy your life and things like that. So getting to know a few of the other guys from different nationalities, like we've got Billy LaRue as well, South African fullback here, and different cultures. So it's been pretty awesome to get to know guys, away from the game a bit more.
Have you actually managed to see any of Japan yet, or has it sort of been in the bubble most of the time?
I saw a little bit last year when the family was up here. So we went up to the snow, got to a few different places, but it's been pretty hard. Kind of last year was shut down with COVID, and this year we're basically in a bubble situation where we go from training ground back to home and not allowed too far away. So it's a little bit frustrating, but it's just the nature of the world as it is these days.
Do you guys have to do Japanese lessons, or is it all translator sort of stuff?
For us, it's all translated. So if we wanted to get lessons, we can do. But like all our coaches are foreign, so all English speaking. So it basically is getting translated into Japanese. Obviously, our Japanese players then, when they speak, gets translated back to English. So it's a little bit different. Getting used to that. It means you've got to be pretty smart with what you're saying, and I guess a bit of body language and pointing and stuff when you're just trying to communicate one-on-one with some of the guys.
Mate, I've got to ask, what's it like being coached by Simon Cron? So Cronny's a bit of I'd use the term legend around Sydney club footy, and I think everyone was pretty sad to see him go. Have you found working with him?
I've found it really good, actually. He's probably the biggest, attribute. He's such a hard worker, and I've found that here, just getting to know him. He'll put so much time and effort into the team, and he's one to, nut down the detail is probably what I've found too. So it's been really good. Like I obviously know his uncle quite well. Coached me for a number of years, but they're actually, in some ways, are similar in terms of how much they love the game, but quite different as well. And Cronin's been really good for us.
Mate, that's good to hear, Matt. I've got so much I want to talk to you about, but I have to ask about the Crusaders. Now, I don't want to shit can Australian rugby. You can do that if you like, but I won't do it. But so many guys that have played in Sydney end up going over to Canterbury, and like I used Mikey Alatoa, who was a teammate of mine in Sydney, as an example, and he was kind of a bit lost here, and went over to the Crusaders, and you know, only in my opinion, but I think he's probably become one of the world's best tight end props. And if you looked at him a few years ago, that's a huge jump. I mean, he's a 140 kilo guy that could run, but what happens in the doors there that sort of gets that out of players? Can you get a sense of it?
Yeah, look, I think I can kind of understand it a little bit. Like, I think firstly, you've got to have it inside you. And so I think to do something as big as what Mikey did in terms of coming to New Zealand, getting out of your comfort zone, and I guess coming to the place where rugby's, it's huge, isn't it? So, and then the opportunity at the Crusaders. For me, I think once you come into the environment down there, like I came from outside, I wasn't born in Christchurch, so I came down into the academy, and straight away you're rubbing shoulders with these legends of the game, and man, you're just wanting to catch up to them and wanting to try and earn their respect, really. And so for me, that whole tradition is just, as a young player, you just want to do well and want to learn. And I think the best thing for our point of view, and what we always tried to do at Crusaders, was welcome these young guys in with open arms and really help them out. There's no hierarchy in this team. Like the senior player, like a guy like Owen Franks or Wyatt Crockett, who Mikey's scrumming against day in, day out, they're not just out there to bash them up. They're out there to help them and help them learn. And, there's nothing better from a young player to have that, I guess, in your development when you're doing that every day.
Who was around your position when you started there?
Yeah, so for me, there was Ruben Thorne, who was an All Black captain. Richie, obviously, was around as All Black captain, and like Mosi Tuiliti as a number 8. So, 3 All Blacks, pretty great players and legends of the game, worldwide, not only in the Crusaders. So, for me, it was just about trying to earn their respect, I think, and you want to just enjoy the game, and those guys are more than willing to pass on their experience and help you grow as a player.
Mate, I was talking to Pat Lamb about this morning, and I get the sense that it's a cultural thing as much as it is a rugby thing. Did you kind of feel that when you're around these guys? Like, obviously they're great rugby players, but it's trying to get the most out of yourself. I'm trying to word it properly, but it's like a pressure to get most out of yourself.
Yeah, look, I think there's 2 ways of, I guess, looking at that. I think, what's happened before us. So in New Zealand, the All Blacks are so strong and been so successful, that's where you want to get to. And same as Crusaders, that's one part of it. But then also, once you do actually make it into these teams, it's your own right that you want to try and be your own person. And so guys will give you as much encouragement as you can to go out there and be yourself and play well for yourself as well. So I think that's probably the 2 ways that really drive New Zealand rugby players. There's all this tradition and history of what we had there, but everyone wants to come in and try and do their best, and genuinely these young guys are encouraged to try and back themselves, really showcase their own skills and go out there and do it.
So it's more of a nurturing kind of environment than necessarily like an ego-driven thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, I think it definitely is. It's not about, wanting to, I think the team always comes first in New Zealand, every team across basically all the teams in New Zealand. So you can't be that type of person, I don't think, in New Zealand rugby team. So, or in New Zealand as a whole, really. So you're doing it for the individual, because it feels good, but you're always making a team get better and get results. So I think that's what kind of drives most of the guys.
Mate, who were some of the early coaching influences for you?
Yeah, for me, there's a guy who's in Sydney now, Rob Penny, who's with the Waratahs. So he was one of my first academy managers down in Canterbury, and then my Canterbury coach for my first few years down there. So he was someone who probably one of the first coaches who really backed me as a number 8. Put a lot of effort into me, into working on my game outside of the traditional training hours. And gave me a lot of confidence as a player. So he was strong. There's basically every coach I've been involved has their own little part. Like Deansy was great for me in my first couple of years at Crusaders. Todd Blackadder was another great coach who gave me so much knowledge around leadership and what he'd learned over his time. And Razor as well, learning different things of what he's brought in the last few years of my career, let alone the All Black coaches. So it's I've been very lucky to be under quite a strong bunch of coaches.
There seems like a bit of a system there for the coaches that they can almost slot into it as well. Is that, or do they all put their individual spins on it when they get into the role?
Everyone's got their own individual spin, most definitely. I think, I'm lucky. Like Crusaders have a brand, and we have a culture that isn't just done by the coach. It's from the senior players. It's from guys that have been there before. It's intertwined in who we are, and so you hope that will continue. All Blacks are the same, so the coach will bring their spin and they'll bring their detail in how they do things. So that's important, obviously, and it's what drives from the top down, doesn't it? In most teams, so the coach is also very important.
I wanted to obviously got to talk about the All Blacks, and I hear everyone talks about winning, but I'm really curious. You haven't lost a lot in your career. What's it like as a New Zealand rugby player when you lose? Do the players feel the pressure, or what's? Can we get a sense of what that's like for you?
Yeah, look, no, I've been, you're lucky in some ways, but then you're not, because you put so much effort in as a team to win these games. But I think when you do lose, it isn't a nice feeling. We go up to win every game, and rightly so. I think we are probably expected to win every game, which isn't going to happen. It's just the nature of competitive sport. But so when we do lose, it does hurt us. It does hurt personally. And generally the country isn't too happy about it because of the expectations on us. So I don't think it adds pressure. I just think once we come off the loss, it probably just heightens our awareness of what we need to do to get right. And so if we had been potentially, maybe the only reason we probably lost was we weren't mentally quite on, or we made a few mistakes in one area or whatever it was. So basically we heighten it into that area of the game, and generally it's a pretty focused week the next week before we play.
What was it? Sorry, how were you told that you were first playing for the All Blacks?
So I just heard that over the radio is when I was named. Yeah, so it was,
so they didn't even call you?
Nah, so this was prior to being called. I think I think of your name, you just hear it over the TV, over the radio. So we played a Mitre 10 Cup, whatever it was back then, ITM Cup final the night before. And Richie had come back. He was playing. I was the captain of the Canterbury team. And so we're having a good night. We'd won the game in Wellington. And quite late on, he just gave me a wee shoulder tap and told me not to have too big a night, because the team was getting named the next morning. Then we're flying out that night or that next day. So he said just to so I had an inkling, obviously, once he did that, and then got named the next day. I didn't tell anyone, got named the next day, and it was pretty cool moment.
I'd assume that would feel pretty good.
Yeah, pretty amazing. Yeah, it's you call it a dream, I guess, and that's certainly what I had as a young fella. I loved the All Blacks, watching them. Never really thought it was going to come to fruition until you get yourself into those positions where you do make these teams, like the Crusaders and whatnot. So yeah, it's a very proud moment. It's not only for yourself, but there's so many people who have touched your career up to that point, who take a lot of pride out of it as well.
I'd assume the family would have been pretty happy. Well, what was it like when you were named All Blacks captain? Was it, and did you find
Yeah.
out on the radio?
Yeah. So All Blacks captain, I think I was, I was ready for it, and I'd had discussions with Steve. Obviously, he was carrying on as coach, and I've played under him my entire career in the All Blacks. So, he did ask me to be the All Black captain, but and then a few months later they announced it, in the media. So it was, it's a massive honour to be in that position in New Zealand. So I definitely didn't take that for granted, but I felt I was certainly ready to and wanting to be the captain as well.
Mate, when you're the captain of the All Blacks, well, what's it like walking around the street in New Zealand? Are people generally pretty respectful of you and sort of leave you to yourself, or what's that like?
They are. They're very respectful in New Zealand, especially in Christchurch. So, from a pretty small town, it's a city, but it's not big. So they're basically used to seeing us getting around town quite often. So it's not too bad. Probably you end up, if you go to certain places, where there's lots of kids, go to malls or you go to whatever, then it might be photo after photo, and that's just the nature of what it is. So it's probably harder on my family, like I had young kids at the time. Certainly a lot harder on them than myself, because you appreciate the support that you get. But my girls obviously didn't want to stop every 5 mintes with dad to have a photo or something.
Like, why are these people taking a photo with my dad?
yeah, a little bit like that. Yeah.
I've got to ask. I'm so curious about mental skills for sport. I don't feel like it's something that's talked enough. When you first started playing at that Canterbury or All Black level, were you nervous before a game? Did you get excited? What were the feelings?
Yep. Yeah, I guess the feelings certainly early on was a lot of nerves. But I think as soon as I got out onto the track, like I was always one of those ones. Like I loved the game and loved playing. So as soon as I was on the field, I was fine and could switch in and remain calm. But certainly before games, I was quite nervous. And I was probably, I got better at that as my career went on, and you weren't as nervous as what you were in those early days, but you still felt nerves, especially on the big games.
So you still, even towards the end of your All Black career, you were still getting those sort of anxiety.
Yes, yeah, you still get them, and I think that's important. It shows you care about something. If you're not getting those little nervous butterflies or whatever it is, then maybe you're not quite fully committed to what you're doing. So I know it exhibits itself in different ways, and you can't let them take over your whole mindset. And I was able to make sure that, they're right there, feeling a little bit nervous, which is a good thing. Okay, now let's go switch on to the game. And you get little routines. So, basically the whole hour before kickoff, I had a routine that I used for pretty much my whole career. And, that switches you into your playing mode. It gets you mentally ready and calms yourself down and nice and relaxed, because that's where I played my best, when I wasn't too uptight.
Can I get a little bit nerdy and ask what that routine was? I got a lot of young kids that listen, and I think that would be really interesting for them.
Yeah, look, so for me, I'd listen to some music, pretty chilled out stuff on the way to the ground. Once I was there, I would, walk out to the ground. I would make sure I wasn't getting ready too early. I didn't want to, have to be waiting around not doing something. So I always knew, counted back from when I needed to go for my warm-up. I was like, okay, I need to do my strap in at this time for my legs. I need to, go in and do a little bit of a warm-up with my sand shoes on for this amount of time. And then I'd give myself 5 minutes, get my boots on, tape my boots up, tape my socks up.
So it's pretty similar every game.
Yeah, basically every game. So I kind of knew that if we got to the ground a bit earlier, I'd make sure I'd just chill out for a bit longer, like keep the music on for a bit longer. Because you just don't want to be caught, not quite knowing what you're doing. I think that, so then that's when you kind of start thinking about too much and what could happen. So just trying to remain as relaxed as possible, really. And the structure, really helps it.
Did you ever get help outside, like in terms of a sports psychologist, or did you do much work with is it Gilbert Anoka?
Yeah, Gilbert Anoka. Yeah, so he's been a part of the All Blacks through my whole time there. So he's been available as a mental skills coach, kind of manager across my career. So yeah, did a lot of work with him. So he did sessions for the boys, as a whole team, and then you could talk to him as an individual as well, which he was strong on structure. He was strong on, for your best way to get your mental game in the right places is to make sure you create structure for that. So don't just think it's going to happen, really structure it into your week to do your visualization or to do your whatever it is you need to do before a game to get yourself ready. So it comes down to each individual and what you need. But I think it's certainly a part of the game that it defines the really top teams and the teams that are close to it. And I think, in the big stage, it's the mental game that's the difference.
I've got to ask you this. The whistle goes in the 2011 World Cup final. Can you recall how you felt at that moment? Or is it too hard to put into words?
No, I certainly remember. It was a pretty amazing moment. It was, incredible. Such a great feeling. Mixed in with a bit of relief, just purely because of the expectations on us. It's been 24 years between World Cups for the All Blacks. We're at home. Everyone just wanted us to win, and we wanted to win so much. So, in the nature of the game, how tight it was. So, man, when it's all those things rolled into one, it was an amazing feeling.
How long did the celebrations go afterwards?
It went pretty good. So I think we had a couple of nights in Auckland, and then we went around the country with a few parades and things. So had another couple of nights, maybe a night in Christchurch and Wellington. So it was it was a good few days just to connect and actually kind of really acknowledge kind of what we'd achieved, because you put so much into it, I guess, as teams, and it's cool.
Mate, that sounds awesome. I've just got some random questions for you, and then I'll leave you alone because I'm very conscious of your time. This is from my father. Did you ever get tired of beating Australia?
No, I don't, man. I don't. Well, I'm not doing it anymore. So
you sure did it a lot, though.
Yeah. Hey, look, I was. It's probably one of the best things when I finished my career is that the Bledisloe stayed with us the entire time I was there. I really didn't want to relinquish it. And there was a few, especially in 2019, they won the first one in Perth, gave us a hiding. And then so, it really came down to my last game against Aussie for us to hold on to it. So, the rivalry's there. And for us personally as All Blacks, and for me, it was always a game you got up for, because you respect them and who they are, and the Bledisloe Cup's such a big, I guess, thing on offer. So we never wanted to let that go.
There's guys that I play rugby with, or did play rugby with, who have no memory of Australia holding the Bledisloe Cup. Probably shows you how young they are, or old I am.
Yeah, exactly. What's the thing? Like when I was growing up through my teens and that, it was Australia who had it. So it was all through that kind of around 2000 stuff. It was that 5-6 years of. Well, I think after Jeff Wilson or whatever, when he got bundled out in the 90s, and then you guys held it for a long time. So that's how I grew up. So I know the importance of it and how much it meant to all those All Blacks back then.
How's the body? How are you feeling physically?
Yeah, feeling good. It's quite a strange time, I'm actually, you're obviously not putting your body under as much pressure as what you were doing in the top level. But I've had near on a year off footy now. I played a few games for counties in the Mitre 10 Cup last year, but it's been really good to kind of just have a little bit of a break and not play as many rugby games, because generally you're just getting bashed every weekend. So it's in a good space. So looking forward to hopefully getting some footy up here in Japan starting next month. So
it's starting next month now, because Jed was saying they were sort of not sure how it was going to go. Yeah,
so it's the 20th of Feb is the start now. So, we'll get, I think, a first round of 7 games, and then into kind of an extended finals type setup. So I guess you never know what will happen, but it'd just be exciting to play some footy because like all our boys up here have been pre-season since September, so it's going to be near a 6-month pre-season for them.
Oh, yeah, I haven't met many people that like only training. Mate, in terms of how many more years you think you can go, do you reckon the break's added a couple of years, or how are you feeling about that?
I think, probably in terms of how long I could go, I could keep playing. Yeah, I think so. Especially the way it's set up here in Japan, the season's not as long. So you can just manage your body a little bit in that respect. Like I'm probably pretty sure this might be my last season. In terms of playing, I don't, COVID with the family, so my family's not up here in Japan, they're still in New Zealand. So, that makes it a bit tougher, when you're doing it on your own and you're expecting to have a bit more time with them at this time of your career. So, it's probably going to be my last hit out, I think.
Mate, what about life after? Are you thinking of getting into coaching? Have you done any studies or anything like that?
No, not coaching. Like I'm just doing a kind of management degree at the moment, and so looking into utilize what I've learned over my career around leadership, around high performance, and put that into sport, put it into business and things like that as well. So that's where I see myself going. I think I'll probably give myself a little bit of time to get back into normal life with the family and stuff, and see what tickles my fancy there.
What's your favorite touring destination?
Oh, there's some great places. South Africa is always a great place to go. Been there many a time now. The golf courses there and the food is outstanding. If you look into Europe and the UK, probably for me, Edinburgh was always a favourite place when we played there. I played my debut test there, so I'm probably a little bit biased, but the city's pretty amazing. Like we stay on kind of the old part of the city on the Royal Mile, just below the castle. And so, it's a pretty magical place to be playing and training for footy.
What's your favourite band?
My favorite band probably would be the Killers. For me, I actually got to meet them a few years ago when they played in Christchurch. So I had a few beers at the concert and then got down and got to meet them and backstage afterwards. And I was a very fanboyish. I think they probably didn't know who I was, but I gave them an All Black jersey. And so they seemed pretty happy with the All Black jersey, not that they knew anything about rugby. So
actually, that's cool. A good question. Who's the coolest person you've met over your career? Because I'm sure you've met some interesting people.
Wow. I have met some interesting people. Probably the one person I've met, the Queen, which is which I very, very happy with. She's pretty awesome. That was 10 years ago. She's still going strong now. So, she's, certainly someone who's up there. Who else? Oh, man. Yeah, some pretty awesome opportunities, I guess, with the footy. Which has been pretty cool.
Mate, do you read much?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I read every day, yeah.
Are you a fiction reader, non-fiction, biographies?
Oh, anything, yeah. No, I enjoy anything. So I'm reading Barack Obama's book at the moment, so just started that. But I'll read fiction, crime thrillers or history kind of novels as well. Anything really.
Have you got a favorite?
Oh man,
or something that you'd recommend to a few people?
Yeah. Let me think. I don't know. I kind of, for me, I kind of like the historical kind of books. So Ken Follett is an author. Have you it's kind of fiction, but it's based on real life. So his books, which is I think the Millennium Trilogy, I think is what it's called. So kind of based across the 20th century. It's quite an interesting read, I found.
Okay, cool. Do you watch many movies or documentaries?
Yeah, a little bit. Got plenty of time on my hands now with Netflix, so trying to get through a few series and things, to keep myself busy. Yeah, no, not too bad. I quite enjoy those ESPN 30 for 30s, the ones, that, track those old sports teams. And, yeah, pretty cool, the kind of amount of, footage you can get from some of them.
Mate, I've got two more questions for you, and then I'll leave you alone. I can't thank you enough for doing this. I can't imagine you would, but if you look back on your career, would you change anything?
Yeah, no, I wouldn't. I've been asked that a little bit over the last year or so. No, I wouldn't change anything. It is what it is. I had an absolute blast playing, and I know that, the things that weren't as successful for me over those years weren't for a lack of trying, and weren't for a lack of kind of, working so hard for it. So, knowing I've put in all that, happy with, definitely what's happened.
Actually, sorry, I lie. I've got two more questions. Did you, when you look back, did you enjoy it? Like, were you having the time of your life?
Yeah, it was. It was, being able to do something like playing rugby for your career is, you look back and it's just an absolute honour and so much fun to do. Like, you're travelling the world with your mates, and genuinely for me, that I've got best mates in the teams, and we'll have those guys forever. So that's the biggest thing I think I took out of it. Was the friendships and how much fun you get out of doing it with them.
Last question, mate. What advice would you give 18-year-old Kieran Read?
Look, I would have, I think for any 18-year-old, I think it's important that you focus on what it is that you want to focus on. So rugby, obviously, if that's what it is. But, don't just narrow yourself down, try some other things, whether that's study or work, or, trying to, not just, be purely focused. Have something that you can fall back on. Have something that, can take your mind away from the game, that gives you that balance, that really creates a well-rounded person. That's probably the advice I'd give to anyone at that stage.
Beautiful. I think that's a great way to end, mate. Hopefully when all this COVID stuff goes away, I was going to come visit Jed, so it'd be nice to buy you a beer or something in person. And thank you so much.
Yeah,
man.
Awesome. No problem. Cheers, Duncan.
I appreciate it, mate. Have a good evening, and thanks, mate.
Sweet, man. No worries, mate. Okay.
Thanks, bro. See ya. Bye.